Oh. All right. Good evening and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Sahuarita Unified School District Governing Board. At this time, please stand and join us in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll move on to the roll call. Ms. Palacios.
Governing Board President Denise Reese.
Here.
Governing Board Clerk Dr. John Sparks.
Here.
Governing Board Member Sherry Lowe.
Here.
Governing Board Member Kevin Opalka.
Here.
Governing Board Member Nicole Warner, absent. District Administration Superintendent Dr. Manuel Valenzuela.
Present.
Assistant Superintendent Scott Downs.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Brett Bonner.
Here.
Chief Financial Officer Lisette Huey.
Here. Okay, thank you so much. Moving on to item 2, approval of the agenda. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. President Reese, members of the board, at this time I would recommend approval of the agenda as it was revised.
We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Approval of the minutes. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, President Reese, members of the board. You have in your packet draft copies of the minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting of the board back on September 14th, 2022, and also 2 other occasions of public gathering of the board, specifically the community conversation about school safety on September 21st, and also the Arizona School Board Association Pima County meeting, which took place on September 22nd. And after your review and consideration, I do recommend your approval of all of these documents at this time.
We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to the ratification of the vouchers. Ms. Huey.
Is it on? Perfect, thank you. Good evening. Tonight I recommend payroll voucher ratification number 6, totaling $1,734,891.79. Expense vouchers 1021 and new expense vouchers 1035 to 1038, totaling expense vouchers of $9,308,612.52 for a grand total of ratification and new vouchers of $11,043,504.31.
We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Just to make sure I heard that correctly, the ratification of vouchers 1021 through 1026, is that correct? I don't think I heard the other.
Say that again, Mr.
For the
Opalka?
expense vouchers,
Mhm.
1021 through 1026, is that correct?
Expense vouchers is expense voucher ratification 1021 through 1026,
Okay,
and then new expense vouchers 1035 to 1038.
thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to the superintendent reports. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, President Reese, members of the board. We always begin with our enrollment report. And although I don't generally like to see a bunch of red on there, and we see a lot of red on there, you notice that the numbers in almost all examples are relatively small. September, after the Labor Day holiday, is a time where numbers kind of stabilize. All the schools are pretty much in session, and we've had a chance to kind of clean up and update the data rolls so that they're more updated. So overall, a decrease in that period of time of 0.3% basically is not unexpected. And I would still mention that we are still up 91 students over the same time last year and still trending in an overall very favorable direction. Pleased to share that the girls golf team at Sahuarita High School won the Flowing Wells Invitational Golf Tournament, and they won by 13 strokes. So our students continue to shine. Congratulations to them. I don't have a picture of this next one, but yesterday I had the opportunity to attend the orchestra concert from the Sahuarita High School band. And as you know, we have a new instrumental music director, Sahuarita High School. They sounded amazing, especially given this is the first concert with a new director. I'm really excited about the future of Mustang instrumental music. It was wonderful. You might recall a while ago about a program called the Gardening Rotary Project. This is an initiative of the Sahuarita Rotary Club, and it's kind of the point person for me has been that gentleman right there who's a physician, by the way, a man of many talents. That's Dr. Randy Vannestrand. And Dr. Vannestrand has a special place in his heart for children's literature and for students. And he wrote this book about gardening, and it's called What Every Seed Needs to Know. And so through his Rotary Club and outreach, he gathered funds to provide that book for every kindergartner in the Sahuarita Unified School District. And he's going around with his fellow Rotarians, and they are reading the book, and they are even planting some seeds. And just, the gift of a book to me is, one of the greatest things you can give. And what a great way for our youngest youngsters to start their educational careers with a brand new book. I love it. Speaking of amazing things, yesterday I had the opportunity to participate in the recognition of Mrs. Kelly Strayer, who teaches at Copperview School. She was named a legendary teacher by the Legendary Teacher Foundation, which is led by our friend Dr. Nicholas Clement, the former superintendent in the Flowing Wells Unified School District. He does this in his retirement, and as we all know, Kelly really exemplifies the highest ideals of the profession: passion for students, excellence in teaching, innovation in her craft, and she is a great ambassador for Sahuarita School District. And so we celebrated her along with honorees from all over the region, and that does lift your spirits. The only other thing I had, President Reese, members of the board, is I'd like to remind all of you that tomorrow at 11 a.m. is the monthly board luncheon. So for those of you that are able to make it, it will be at Link. So it'll literally be at the current Link location, which is on the SIS campus over there where the Professional Development Center is. And we, at Link, like the students, they bring in the lunch. So if you could just mention to Betsy before you go, if you'll be able to come, if you haven't already replied on the calendar invite, just so that she knows, and we make sure we got a lunch for you. So with that, concludes my report. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Valenzuela. Moving on to the governing board reports. Mr. Opaka.
Thank you. Just excited about the fall break that's coming up. I think a lot of the kids are ready for a little time off. And I want to say congratulations to all the board members who received awards from ASBA at the county meeting. The continuing education and efforts that you do doesn't go unnoticed, so great job, fellow boardsmen.
Perfect. Dr. Sparks.
Also, very little tonight. Just want to say I'm grateful everybody's here and hope everybody enjoys a well-deserved week break here in the middle of fall. So, thank you very much.
Ms. Lowell?
No report.
Okay. As for me tonight, I would like to thank everyone for being here in the audience. The nights that we get to celebrate our students are always very special to us, and it's great to have so many people in the audience. I would like to also send out a hearty good luck to Walden Grove and Sahuarita High School bands who will be participating in their first marching band competition this weekend, and they have another one coming up the following weekend, so best of luck to them. Moving on to recognition of staff, students, and community. We have our staff recognition this evening. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. And we like to celebrate success around here. And to the point about the governing board, I was present at the Arizona School Board Association county meeting, and I can tell you that I was very proud because every single one of our governing board members was honored for service and for continuing education. I don't remember that was real common, that a lot of districts had that. So congratulations. And speaking of congratulations, every month it is our honor to recognize a distinguished and honored member of our support staff team. You know, the delivery of a high quality education requires many people, many different departments, and it's a shared pursuit. And the members of our support staff team, they make up about half of our workforce, and they are vital. And as we hear every month, they excel in their respective pursuits and contribute in very special ways to the delivery of our noble mission, which is the education of children. So we have another honoree to recognize today, and I'll turn it over to my colleague, Assistant Superintendent Downs, for the honors.
Thank you, Dr. Valenzuela. Again, trying to pick one person out of 450 is very difficult. We receive a lot of nominations every month, but without further ado, it is my pleasure to read this nomination from Mrs. Jess Beignet, the Student Services team. They have nominated Mrs. Joyce Blaylock as the Sahuarita Unified School District Support Staff Member of the Month. Mrs. Beignet says, the growth of the district, and more specifically, the increasing enrollment and heightened needs of the Student Services Department, have added additional duties to Joyce's plate, and she readily accepted the challenge, working to ensure that best practices are in mind and the best actions at all time. Joyce is the part of the glue that holds the department together, overseeing compliance, entering and maintaining state reporting, providing direct support to the department staff, and supporting the director in scheduled and emergency daily tasks. Joyce started with the district in December of 2013 and has worked in a number of roles, including inventory control technician and program specialist. She joined the Student Services Department in February of 2016 and has spent nearly the last 7 years supporting students and staff for the department's success. Joyce is a true advocate, working diligently to support the resources services for our students across the district. And although this can be stressful and time-consuming, she never hesitates, as her goal is to always ensure that the staff has what they need and the students get what they deserve. Joyce is a genuine asset to the department and a valued member of the Sahuarita Unified School District team. Mrs. Joyce Blaylock, the Sahuarita Unified School District Support Staff Member of the Month.
Congratulations again. Now we'll move on to our October Leaders in Character, Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. Another one of our special honors every month is to recognize our leaders in character. Again, this is a very, very special and very distinguished honor because we believe that character counts and that being a strong citizen in your community, in your school, in your family, in your country, that this is an important part of the educational process. So we hold it in very high esteem. We ask every school to nominate either one or two students depending on the structure of the school. And we honor them here by our board. They also receive a gift card from our friends at Freeport McMahon who have been sponsors of this program from the beginning. And they get their pictures taken here and shared with the Green Valley News, who for years has been putting it in the newspaper so that the whole community knows about our wonderful students. And you get a certificate and a letter that hopefully you will keep in commemoration of this special honor. So we'll begin. Mr. Opalka will do the honors. When your name is called, if you could come down, and then you'll receive your award and you'll be guided up there. Mr. Bonner will be your helper and he'll position you up there on the steps so that we can take your picture and everybody can see how amazing you are. So let's go ahead and get started. Our leader in character. The first honoree is from Sopari Elementary School, third grader Emeline Rojas. Come on down. She's here, but she stepped out. That's all right. We'll put it aside, and we'll bring her right through when she gets back. And we will move on to our leader in character, plural, two. Leader in characters from Anza Trail. Again, Anza Trail has a middle school honoree and an elementary honoree. And we begin with the elementary honoree, who's a fourth grader. Congratulations, Joseph Denker. Joseph. And we now recognize the Anza Trail leader in character for middle school. Congratulations, seventh grader Carson Mitchell. Come on down. Okay. And I understand that Miss Rojas, Emmeline Rojas from Sopri is back. And so we'll bring you down and recognize you as well. All right, moving down the list, it's now my honor and pleasure to recognize the leader in character from Sahuarita Primary School. Congratulations, Camila Ortiz. Camila. And it is my pleasure to let everybody know that the leader in character from Sahuarita Intermediate School is fourth grader Oliver Lights. Come on down. And moving across the street to Copperview Elementary School, the leader in character is a fifth grader, Anissa Valentino. Come on down. You know what? I think I didn't know if Anissa was going to be able to make it. So we'll make sure that we recognize her at another time. I think her mother reached out. So yes, we'll move on to Wrightson Ridge School, where our first leader in character is a first grader. Congratulations, Zumar Faisal. Come on down. And our Wrightson Ridge leader in character for middle school is an eighth grader, and we all congratulate Kylie Beitenmiller. Come on down. We have another eighth grader to recognize next. This one from Sahuarita Middle School. Congratulations, Lydia Anderson. And we're now up to the leaders in character from our two wonderful high schools, beginning with Sahuarita High School, home of the Mustangs. Congratulations, Isaiah Rodriguez. And now we move to Red Wolf territory, our honoree from Walden Grove High School. Congratulations, Merrick Egason. And finally this evening, for our student leader in character recognition, we recognize the honoree from our newest school. That's right. It is a school fully digital, fully online, the Sahuarita Digital Pathways Academy. Congratulations, Gianna Farnsworth. So come on down, and parents, I saw you with those phones. If you want to come down and get your own shot of the picture, besides the one we're taking officially for the newspaper, please come on down, take a picture. You're also welcome to stay if you'd like, but I also understand homework and other things call. So after this is kind of a good time if you do need to make a break. Totally understandable. My computer froze, but it's okay. I can deal without it, but I just want to let you know. No. That would be Congratulations to all of you parents. I hope you know how incredibly proud we are of your students. They are amazing. One more round of applause for our leaders in character, please. That's it. Yes. Oh, yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Oh, I think you can proceed.
All right. Moving on, our next item on the agenda tonight is call to the public. Ms. Palacios, did we have anyone? Okay. So moving on to the, sorry, I lost my place. There we go. The 2024-25 school calendar. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, President Reese, members of the board. As you and your fellow board members may recall, a few years ago, it was asked that the district be more extended in the timing of approving calendars so that families could prepare with the understanding that things change. And thanks to my colleague, Mr. Bonner, we've always strived to uphold that. So my only comments is there's no, as you'll see, I can't believe we're talking about the year 25, but there's no major deviations. And you'll see, as always, Mr. Bonner does a really nice job of providing a very balanced calendar. Mr. Bonner.
Thank you, Dr. Valenzuela, Governing Board President, members of the community. Today, I'd like to present to you briefly the proposed 2024-2025 school calendar. It is somewhat surreal and scientific in a way of thinking 2025, very futuristic. As Dr. Valenzuela referenced, we like to have 2 approved calendars ahead of every calendar year. So that's been our plan based on feedback and the board's direction. And in this calendar proposal, we're following the formula or the template like we've used in years past. When we've surveyed our parents, the feedback that we've received consistently has been to support the traditional calendar, not doing a year-round school calendar. It's been the traditional, usually the 3 months of summer and the other remaining months starting in August, ending in May of a school year. That's been the feedback. In addition to that, historically, our goal is to end the school year prior to Memorial Day. And we are honoring that in this exact template. In addition to that, we have a few days prior to the school year for our new teacher induction that is done and designated during the month of July, the end of July. And we have 3 teacher work days with our opening day assembly to welcome everyone back. The beginning of August, and the first day of school would start August 5th. And then the last day of school with our promotions would begin that week of the 19th through the 22nd. And the last day of staff would be on the 23rd. A couple of things that are non-negotiable. We have to, by state statute, have 180 calendar school days, which we do in this model. I like the balance of this calendar. First quarter, we have 44 school days. Second quarter, we have 46 school days. Third quarter, we have 42 days. And then the fourth quarter, 48 days. So it's 90 and 90, which is a good balance for our planning and report card purposes to have the true 180 reflected in what we are required to do. Our plan is to have Dr. Valenzuela make the recommendation to table this. We will set a link active tonight on our webpage where parents can give feedback, share any insight, and we'll also share this through our social media platforms to also seek feedback or any insight. Amber Woods has also offered to embed it into our electronic newsletter, which reaches over 6,600 subscribers for additional feedback. So we will canvass our district webpage, our e-newsletters, and our social media platforms to get any feedback. Then I'll bring the feedback pending Dr. Valenzuela's recommendation to the November 9th board meeting to hopefully approve, and I'll share the feedback once we close that window on November 8th. So I'll leave it open for almost a month, close that data window survey information on November 8th, and present the results November 9th pending Dr. Valenzuela's recommendation.
So
Other than that, it looks like a pretty standard calendar, and I'm open for any questions.
And at this point, prior to any questions, I'd recommend tabling the calendar as presented.
Okay, we have a recommendation to table the calendar at this time. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or questions?
Just like to say, I appreciate the continual effort to do this. It is looking out far into the horizon. It's not although not super far, but it does allow families to plan and to prepare.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay. The motion on the table is to table this item until we can get the feedback. Is there, seeing no further discussion, we shall proceed to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the public online auction items. Dr. Valenzuela. Nope, I'm sorry, I missed it. I knew I was going to do that. The 2021-22 annual financial report. Ms. Huey.
Lizette, if I may, just a couple of
Okay.
background comments before I turn it over to my colleague, Mrs. Huey. This is a statutory requirement, as she'll share, specifically by October 15th of each year by state law. So we are in compliance on many levels. The only comments I wanted to make is that I think what you'll see and hear is that despite the challenges, this is for fiscal year 22, so they're always phased back, but despite the challenges of that era that we all are very well aware, the district is in very sound financial shape, I'm pleased to report to you. Additionally, you will see that these are very complex times. So it's not business as usual, and there are some differences. You'll hear Lizette talk a little bit about, make a few just basic comments in regards to the federal relief funds that were provided. And finally, I feel that the decision-making that was made with the resources available to us were extremely sound and basically focused, as the board is aware, on a couple of basic points. One is during those times when we lost almost 10% of our student population and our budget was shrinking, we took the stand of protecting and preserving our greatest resource, which is the people who teach our kids and deliver our programs. We've bounced back to almost pre-pandemic levels with enrollments, and when you look at the staffing situation worldwide, I think the board was very wise to take that investment It's continuing to pay dividends. And with that, I will turn it over to Mrs. Hewitt.
Thank you, Dr. Valenzuela. Good evening, President Reese, members of the board, district administration, and community members. Tonight, like Dr. Valenzuela mentioned, I'll be presenting the 2021-22 annual financial report. Next slide. As Dr. Valenzuela mentioned, this is a statutory requirement. I always get asked, what is the AFR? And really what it is basically it's explaining all of where we spent our monies the prior year. So it's not budgeting and we're not adding any budget, but we're basically reporting where we have spent our monies in the past. So I just wanted to clarify that. The information used from the AFR is also used to report on the Auditor General's annual classroom expenditure report, and that normally comes out in the springtime. So just wanted to add that piece of information. But by statutory requirements, we are required to solidify our expenses and report by October 15th. Next slide. These are just a small amount of regulations that our district does meet with all of our requirements. As a reminder, we do get audited once a year, and they come do their visit twice a year. And so we are, these expenditures are in compliance with all of our state, local, and federal regulations. Next slide. This is just an overview. I know we always talk about fiscal years and it gets a little confusing if what fiscal year are we on, and you're looking at your current fiscal year of our current budget. We're always working 3 years in one motion. So we're always completing our end, which is our current, we're ending our fiscal 22 fiscal year. And then we're also in current fiscal year, which would be our 2023. And we're also starting to work on our 2024, believe it or not. So we're always working in 3 budget fiscal years, and just wanted to let you know where we are with the AFR. This is to complete this current fiscal year. The next slide. At this time, I just wanted to share with you how the day-to-day operations correlates to all the items in the annual financial report. And basically, our accounts payable processes and reviews and makes payments on 3,633 purchase orders. Along with that, we have 186,793 transactions that hit our general ledger, and this is for the year. And it is reflected, all of these day-to-day operations is reflected in the annual financial report. And I just wanted to take a special moment just to thank all of our schools and our departments and everyone who really helps with processing requisitions, purchase orders. Our schools are a key component to that, and they really, really do work with the business office to make sure that we are following the processes and taking and making sure that the transaction is successful. We also had new staff members in the business office, and this year I'd like to recognize them, and they've done a phenomenal job with keeping things in order, making sure that we're still delivering that service to our schools. Furthermore, we also manage
Monitor and adjust. It's what we teachers do.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Back on. Sorry about that. It looks like my my speaker doesn't like to hear all the financials, right? It got tired and died on me. It's okay. Again, just to kind of go back, I just wanted to reiterate that this year we've had federal grants and state grants as well, and we did increase about 18 more grants this year than we have in the past. And the financial responsibility is extensive. It's detailed. Every grant has their own way of doing things. They're all different, and it is time consuming. And I just wanted to take the time to thank Christina Martin. Also, she did a great job with working with ADE to manage the funds, request our funds, to submit reports and all of our expenditures, and making sure that we got what we needed through all that red tape that we have to go through. I'm very proud of everyone's hard work, and I just wanted to thank everyone for everyone's collaboration, because it's just not the business office. This is a team effort district-wide, and I really wanted to thank everyone. Next slide. Also, since the majority of our budget is salaries and benefit, I also think it's really highly important to highlight the payroll operations and how it contributes to the annual financial report. This past payroll, we processed 103,029 payroll transactions, and that does not include any of the W-2s, any of the ASRS, quarterly reports and taxes and things that they all have to do. And we have two team members, Ashley Clifton and Melissa Jaramillo, who are our payroll specialists and technicians, and they work hard to ensure that our employees are paid timely, accurate, and efficiently. So I just wanted to acknowledge them for all of their hard work, and in correlation with our human resources team as well. So just wanted to thank them. Next slide. So we're going to start tonight with, like Dr. Valenzuela mentioned, the last 2 years we've had, they've been different, to say the least. And so the thing that I'm thankful for is that we were able to get stimulus dollars to help offset some of the costs. As you know, our enrollment did decline over those 2 years in an amount of about 10% of a decline. So in fact, if that would have, because that happened, our M&O budget was reduced, and so the stimulus helped to offset some of those costs so that we could keep programs, keep people employed, and keep our continuity of services. So tonight I just wanted to take some time to go over the history of the COVID relief funds for the items that were spent in fiscal 21, and those would be the Enrollment Stabilization Grant, the ESG, the ESSER 1, and the ESSER 2. I did want to make sure in this PowerPoint it does indicate what the items were used for, what each grant was used for, and how we manage those funds specifically to each grant. And just to highlight, these grants, we have no more availability. There were one-time funds, and those have gone away. Next slide. This is the stimulus funding overview for the items that we used in fiscal 22. So we started off with the 100-day grant, our step-up gap funding, our emergency connectivity fund, and our ESSER 3 grants. And the ESSER 3 was a more restrictive grant, and it does include all of our health services, our personnel for counseling needs after school. I know Mr. Bonner has been really engaged with making sure that all of those items are sustained, and our summer school needs as well. The only grant that we have left over for after this fiscal year is our ESSER 3, and this is the only grant that we have money, and it's targeted already specifically to be used in fiscal 23, and then we're going to be done with that grant as well. So again, these are one-time funds that really did help to sustain our maintenance and operation budget, and that's going to be reflected in the next few slides. Next slide. So now let's take a look on how the day-to-day operations translates to the AFR in regards to expenditures. The M&O does show a decrease of expenditures from prior year of about $876,000 compared to the prior year. I wanted to highlight that the most significant changes were a decrease to our regular education and an increase to transportation from prior year. Again, the reason that you see the decrease is not because we spent less, but because we were able to shift those expenses to an allowable stimulus grant, such as the ESSER 3 and the step-up grant. However, I did want to point out that there were some savings in both fiscal years because we also managed our positions carefully. We did see a reduction in our student enrollment, so we didn't quickly add positions, but we maintained the positions that we had, and we made sure that we secured those jobs for the future. Last year, we used ESSER 2 funding to offset transportation salaries and benefits, and then we utilized those M&O dollars that we would have used for transportation to help support all of our positions district-wide. So as you can see, that those monies were distributed equally throughout the district. Next slide. What this graph shows, it reflects basically similar to the other slide. The only difference here is that it separates how we spent our money by category, and we spent our M&O dollars. Specifically, we have different sections, and the categories are salaries and benefits, purchase services, supplies, and other. Similar to the previous slide, you can see that there was less expenses through the M&O budget for salaries and benefit. Like I mentioned before, those were offset by the stimulus dollars that we were able to sustain those jobs. For the transportation area, which would be purchase services, there was an increase specifically to that category only because we had to go through outside third-party companies like contractors and charter buses in order for us to sustain and transport our students for mostly extracurricular activities when we couldn't have our bus drivers do that due to the shortage. Next slide. This slide is familiar to you. Basically, we usually have this information. It's just it's a good guide just to kind of show what we had, where we were on our expenses. So the blue is indicates the fiscal year 22, which you can see is a slight decrease in our instructional staff out of M&O. However, there were associated costs that are not due to the salary of staff reductions. Basically, where, like we said, we use those other grants to supplement those areas. For fiscal 22, you'll see a slight increase of expenses in the 2,000 and the 6,100. And again, that area is basically what we used for our transportation costs. So that 2,000 code is mostly transportation and other support services. And additionally, you'll see in the 63, 64, and 6,500, those areas were a little bit higher than prior year, and that was due to professional development increases as far as more expenditures in those areas, contracted subs, repairs and maintenance, and other third-party costs that we associated with that. Next slide. This is the expenditure comparison for the district additional assistance from the prior year. And as you can see, our expenditures in capital were a little bit higher. I would like to say that last year was the first year that we did not experience a reduction from our district additional assistance since 2013 to just last year. We had reductions totaling $13.6 million that was taken from our current allocation that the state took back. So we were seeing a significant hit. Last year it was recently restored, and the restoration doesn't take us to what we should be getting right now, but it does take us to 2008 expenditure limits. Again, as you can tell, there's a lot of cost associated. Costs have gone up in just the short amount of the 2 years. And I wanted to reiterate that we're still funded on 2008 formulas. So I think that's important to highlight. Here you'll see that our facilities did show an increase of an expense, but not as quite as far how it was before the pandemic. And again, this is only due to supply chain issues. A lot of the items that we were going to purchase last year had to be pushed onto this year because we couldn't get those items in time for facilities to do what they need to do. They're coming in slowly, but we did experience that some of those costs will be continued into this new current fiscal year in 2023. We did see also in 21 that there was some monies that we received from SFB, and those were monies from the Schools Facilities Board, so that we can use that to do roofing projects and things of that nature, and we did take advantage of that in 2021. We do see a spike in furniture and equipment, and I just wanted to share that the increase to those were due to purchase of additional technology during last year, and I wanted to share that about more than half of our expenses in furniture and equipment were spent on technology. So I think that's important to highlight. The other category is used for additional building improvements, and those were pretty much sustained. And with that, that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to send that over to Dr. Valenzuela for recommendation.
And as required by law at this point, I do recommend approval of the annual financial report for fiscal year 22 as it was presented.
We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I just want to thank, obviously, the business office and any of the support staff that works with the business office in order which to put this together. The account codes is enough to make anyone's head spin. So, I'm extraordinarily grateful that you've got a team can handle it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Harry. Next item of business is the public online auction items. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. President Reese, members of the board. Now we are at the public online auction items. And as usual, you have a list of qualifying equipment and items that have reached their useful life and are allowable to be put on the auction block for the capturing of residual income for the district. And at this point, I would recommend your authorization as such.
Okay, we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next item of business is the aggregate expenditure limit resolution. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. Members of the board, this is an opportunity for our governing board to choose to authorize a resolution in regards to this topic called the aggregate expenditure limit. Just to briefly inform and review and inform for the board and public, this is an item that was constitutionally amended to the Arizona Constitution in the year 1980. And it was part of those of us that were around back then, it was kind of associated with the whole Prop 13 tax reduction. It came out of California. And so they put in a constitutional statement that limits spending to 1980 levels, with the only exceptions being the minimum thresholds for inflation and for growth. So just making some statements, in 1980, I was in middle school, and I took a class called typing, not keyboarding, typing, and it was with a manual typewriter. It was really one of the best classes I ever took. Little did I know the importance of keyboarding and how it would transform the world. Everybody would need to know how to keyboard. So these things were not really around, and these things, which all of us and a lot of our children carry around, were not part of the operational landscape, let alone the educational landscape. So I'm just trying to draw the contrast that we've come a long way in many ways. Prop 301, which we know is an Arizona sales tax that was approved probably more than 20 years ago to support teacher retention and compensation. Those dollars used to be outside of the aggregate expenditure limit, so they didn't count. Now, because they are no longer voter protected, because it was only good for like 20 years, that just ran out within the last couple of years. So now, thankfully, it's been continued, but it's not protected. So those millions of dollars in the state, they go against the aggregate expenditure limit. I'm just trying to paint the picture of these variables that are impacting this thing. So thankfully, this item's got to be, in my opinion, has got to be fixed permanently for the long haul. But right now, in order to allow us to expend our full budget, it has to be overridden by the legislature. You might remember there was kind of a flurry of activity before the March 1st deadline, I believe it is, to get it overridden, and the legislature and the governor were successful at doing that. But this is an annual event until it's permanently fixed. So for this year, the current year, the governor signed the budget. The budget was approved by the legislature, and it includes the authorization for the board to approve a budget and to authorize staff to spend up to the budget that's been presented to you. The issue is that if it's not overridden by March 1st again, the state and every corresponding entity has to reduce its budget by an amount approximately 17%. in order to not violate that constitutional piece if it's not overridden. So that amounts to, well, I'll start little and go big. For Sahuarita School District, it's not a very little number. It means that as of March 1st, in this year's budget, we'd have to reduce $9 million of that approximately $50 million budget. So you can only imagine the impact of that. Now multiply it across the strait. It's a number for this year of about 1.3 billion with a B. Now, besides the educational, I mean, you hear schools talking about potentially having to close and, reduce staff, which is something that in our district, I can tell you, we would do everything possible to avoid to the last penny that we can grasp. But nonetheless, you can't, that's a huge impact. And at the state level, beyond education, think about the economic engine that $1.3 billion generates across sectors and across communities. So the governor did state at the end of the session that he would call the legislature back into session to address this for this year. And the resolution merely cites the factual points that I just presented to you and calls on the legislature and the governor to do what they said that they would do, which is come back and address the aggregate expenditure limit. So that is the resolution. I believe it's a sound resolution that represents the best interest of the district. I would recommend that you approve the resolution as it's presented.
Okay, we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I just have to put out there, I don't think the general public understands the cliff this presents almost every year now. I mean, it's becoming every single year. And if we think of, from a funding perspective, we're pretty close to the bottom as especially in per pupil funding. And what this would do to that, I mean, we would be marked. And I think every year this causes significant distress across the educational environment. So at some point, someone has to, ask them to at least kind of consistently move this forward. But I'm just grateful that we're at least expressing that we're concerned about this. Yeah, thank you.
Any other discussion?
No.
Okay. I agree. I think that nobody would expect a household to run on this kind of thing. And so allowing schools to say, you've got this much to spend, oh wait, only until March 1st, and then not really, is a little bit frustrating. So I'm grateful that we're at least indicating that we would like to hold the legislature and the governor accountable for what they've said that they were going to do. So any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to the 2023 revised governing board schedule. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, President Reese, members of the board and public. This is a relatively minor change, but as I often say, little things make a big difference. It's actually a little detailed. The fact that the previously approved board calendar for calendar year 2023 has a board meeting scheduled on May the 24th. The problem with that is the night of the commencement exercises, the graduation for Sahuarita High School. So this merely makes the minor adjustment of pushing back that meeting by a week to May 31st of 2023. And so with that, I would recommend your revision of that governing board meeting schedule as just presented.
We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye. Next item, policy advisories 717 to 736. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. This usually happens once, probably every year. And this is the pretty voluminous list of advisories. But really what this is this is the policy services that the board subscribes to the Arizona School Board Association, where their attorneys and their staff creates policies for a variety of reasons, but the majority of these are a direct reflection of outcomes from new laws that came from the last legislative session. So in essence, we're required to adopt these, and ASBA does a good job of framing them and presenting them to us. Just to kind of summarize kind of some of the themes, I'll just highlight a few of them. There are policy advisors in there, for example, about surveys. And the main thing is, if you're going to do surveys, you have to have significant protections, and you have to largely incorporate active consent, where surveys cannot be administered in general unless there's active parental consent, which largely is how we've always done surveys. There's a policy advisory in there about guidelines for how we deliver, and any district delivers, family life education. Anything in that area has requirements in terms of the scope and the notifications and the content and the grade levels, things like that. There's also a policy advisory in there about a new law that talks about access to library books and the public and parents being able to know what books are in the library. Fortunately, through our intentional technology transformation and movement, we've moved a lot of that stuff to digital format, where anybody can enter a title and know if not only if a book is in the library, but even like if it's checked out. So it's pretty nice. Similarly, with any new titles that are purchased, they have that requirement. There's one in there about immunizations, and it basically says that only those immunizations that are adopted under the provisions of Title 36, which is the rules for adopting immunizations that are required for school attendance, that only those immunizations can be mandated for school attendance. There's one in there about taking time each year in September to teach about the September 11th tragedy, that horrible attack. And as you know, if you had a chance to attend our On the Trail Patriots Day, for example, that's just one example of how we do that. There's a policy in there regarding a new law that says the cut score for the graduation requirement on the civics examination was raised from 60 to 70. And another one reinforces the requirement for a minute of silence every day. So that's just kind of a summary of some of the major advisories that you have before you. As always, my counsel to you is that you table these just to give people a chance to see them, ask questions about them, and then I anticipate that we'll bring them back at the next meeting for formal adoption. So at this point, I do recommend tabling.
We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay. Moving on to the new business personnel. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, President Reese, members of the board and public. This pertains to the matter of the appointment of the SOPRI principal. So just as a quick backdrop, as the board is aware, and for the public's information, the previous principal at SOPRI School, Jim Heinzelman, was recently appointed by the board as the new director of human resources. And I didn't realize it, the time does fly, but Jim was the principal at Sopry School for 11 years. I didn't realize that. And that school has generally a long history of tenure of principals. Dr. Ralston was there for multiple years. Mr. Oldham was there for several years. So we thank Jim for his service to the Sopry community. So when that position became available as normal, we spared no detail, time, effort, conducted a thorough search, screening, interview process. And I will tell you that we know, and we all experience in our own professional and personal lives, just the challenges that the workforce has, the workplace, the economy, in terms of staffing and staffing shortages, and trying to deliver the mission given some of these unique challenges. And so I'm grateful for our team and how we continue every day in many ways to deliver the mission, which is still noble, still good. And by the way, in my opinion, we're continuing to deliver at a very high level, but it's extraordinarily hard, meaning harder than it probably has been before. So we went through that process, and in form with the staffing challenges that kind of define our society right now, it was challenging. We were fortunate, though, to receive multiple candidates, including strong internal candidates for the principalship at Stokely, which I believe speaks to the specialness of the community, the commitment and support of the district, and just the unique factor that define us as an organization, but also as a diverse and special community. So as usual, you've heard the general process. I know the board's aware. We involve representative stakeholders from support staff, from certified staff, teachers, district administration, principal, leadership, parents. They went through this whole process. In fact, it was such a detailed process that I chose to interview the finalists myself, and took significant amount of time with the finalists. And after that process, I felt strong and really in affirming that we have great people in this organization. And I also felt strong in affirming the recommendation of this committee process to recommend the appointment this evening of Mr. Robert Beachy as the new principal at Sopry School. And I want to tell you just a little bit about Rob. Mr. Beachy grew up in Ohio, and he graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in English Language Arts from Youngstown State University. He came west pretty promptly after that, where he accepted a job as a high school English Language Arts teacher at Sahuarita High School way back in 2008. During his tenure, Mr. Beachy certainly made a mark. He served as department chair. He was honored as their Teacher of the Year. He established a very strong record of delivering strong results of his students on the state assessments and also on the College Board AP testing program. His students achieved, what do they call them? Qualifying scores at a very high level. He also got involved as a professional development facilitator and as a mentor. Meanwhile, he continued to grow and develop his own educational attainment by earning a master's degree at Northern Arizona University. And since the year 2015, Rob served Sahuarita School District as the assistant principal at Sahuarita Middle School. Once again, he supported the operations at that school. Some of the highlights of his accomplishments: he initiated the harvesting garden that is right outside here that helps recycle water to water the plants. He initiated the Ben's Bell project. And one of his big milestones is initiating the Campus Cleanup Club to initiate pride for students in their campus and making it a place that they want to be. So I hope that's not my microphone. This evening, I am proud to recommend Rob as the new principal at Sopry, while providing additional commentary, just because I think it's proper to frame the context and to acknowledge what I was kind of hinting at, that this recommendation is not being done as normal or in a vacuum or in the context of the normal times. It does have implication and systemic implications that are not on deaf ears. They're acknowledged and they're true. And that is that multiple campuses are being affected. And I just want to stress and reinforce to the board that that is absorbed with sincerity and with much thought, much energy, and much time and effort to address. So just to frame a little bit about the anticipated plan, and we did talk with both schools today. The plan is that after the fall break, there will be a transition period, which is approximately 2 weeks. And so pending your approval, Mr. Beachy would stay at Sahuarita Middle School to facilitate a transition. Mr. Heinzelman will continue to, as I say, straddle the fence, continue to do the work in the Human Resources Department, which is continuing to operate in a very lean situation right now. But just to facilitate that transition. Another variable, there's, like I said, everything's just more complicated and challenging these days. So on top of everything that I just mentioned, as we all know, we had a very blessed event this week. The Silmans, the SMS principal, Miss Stephanie Silman, and her husband Chris, welcomed a new baby girl. Healthy, mom and baby are doing well, thank God. But that's another variable that we have to consider. Therefore, after consulting with John Kenoy, principal at Sahuarita High School, and Mike D'Souza, assistant principal at Sahuarita High School, we developed a plan, and we were agreeable to the concept of, at this transition point, asking Mr. D'Souza to come to Sahuarita Middle School and to assume the position of acting principal from the point of that transition, which we think is about November 1st, plus or minus a little bit, and providing that stable presence, that consistent leadership, wisdom and guidance and support and service to help Sahuarita Middle School to the end of the semester. Again, it's not easy. It clearly is a challenging time for all of us. We're striving to advance the mission of our educational goals, which has many parts, as we know, while still being considerate that these decisions and these goals are going to have outcomes that we're going to have to mitigate. And so it's not perfect. We believe it's the best, most thoughtful fit to a not ideal situation. And with that, I recommend for you for your consideration this evening the appointment of Rob Beachy as the new principal at Sopri Elementary School.
We have a Sorry. We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I would just like to congratulate Mr. Beachy. I have had students at SMS now for, good grief, 5 years. Ouch. And they've gotten to know you. I've gotten to know you, and I just wish you my wholehearted congratulations in your new adventure. I know at least my Carmen will probably miss you because she's been a part of your campus cleanup club. So, but congratulations. So, any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Congratulations.
Good evening, everybody. I am very honored to be named the principal of the Sopri School. I have such a deep reverence for that community. It's kind of crazy. 15 years ago, I came here from Youngstown, Ohio. I never got to go away to college. I worked at Home Depot and delivered pizzas, and I commuted to school. And so I was looking for an adventure, and I really found a home. I met my wife, my wonderful wife, Caitlin Beachy, at professional development and Karen Rojan's science room. And I invited her to hang out, and she told me, Yeah, well, I live on the north side of town, of Tucson. So, but, I'm a persistent guy. So over time, we, fell in love and we're married. I have achieved so many important milestones in this district. Sahuarita really is my heart and is my home. So I'm glad I was able to continue my professional growth within the district. You have my full commitment to the students of Soperi and also supporting SMS. Stephanie Silman was a tremendous mentor at Sahuarita Middle School. We've been through so much together. There's not a lot of jobs I would leave SMS for. And this was an extremely hard decision and, certainly untimely. But, Soperi was one school that I always felt a connection to and one that I knew if I ever got the opportunity, I would go for it. I'd also like to, aside from my wife, thank my parents and my sister who are now in Washington. They've been tremendously supportive. My little sister's a doctorate of psychology. My dad was a hard worker, working 3 jobs when we were little to give us a good experience. And so he's modeled a lot for me as well. With that, that's all I have, but I am just so appreciative and grateful for the appointment. Thank you.
Moving on, there we go. Moving on to the consent agenda. Dr. Valenzuela.
Yes, ma'am. President Reese, members of the board, you have in your packet a list of routine consent matters that may be considered in one comprehensive motion. And at this time, I do recommend approval of the consent agenda in its entirety.
We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Possible future agenda items. Does anyone have any possible future agenda items that they'd like to see come up? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on. We're going to establish the next board meeting on October 26, 2022 at Soperi Elementary School in Amado. So at 5000 West Arivaca Road, Amado, Arizona. From there, there's no executive session this evening, so we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you and have a good evening.